Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me this evening. If someone could just comment to let me know that you can hear me, that would be amazing. I'm having more technical difficulties than I actually thought was going to be possible this evening. Can't see any comments, which potentially might mean that nobody can hear me. If anyone is able to just give me a quick... Can you hear me, Alexandra? Wonderful. Does this sound okay? Thanks, Louise. So, look, just a little bit of background on why this is happening. I'm working away this week. I'm in Cheltenham. I'm running lots of events at the Wellbeing Festival. And so I'm in a hotel at the moment, which apparently has no internet. It's very strange. So I've been sort of trying to find various places where I might be able to host this webinar, and you'd think it'd be easy, but it hasn't been easy. And then to top it all off, I forgot my headphones, so I've just bought a new pair and they don't fit in my ears. I've got really small ears. Anyway, look, if you could hear me, I'll stop whinging. That's all fantastic. Karen's here. Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. Karen, would you do me a favour and just let me welcome anyone else into the group? I think a few people are trying to join. That'd be amazing, because I'm going to focus on what I'm doing here rather than welcoming people into the group. And I'm just going to keep touching my ears. I know it's annoying, but the phones keep coming out. Okay, anyway, so I hope you're having a wonderful evening so far. Thank you so much for joining me. We are going to be talking tonight all about plant-based nutrition. And this is a webinar I've been wanting to do for ages, because so many of my friends and clients and family members are moving towards a more plant-based way of eating, which, as we all know, is fantastic for the environment, fantastic for the animals, fantastic for the people. But obviously, from a nutritional perspective, it's really important that we get it right. And that applies when we are just thinking about going more plant-based, and it particularly applies when we are thinking of completely excluding all animal products. So tonight I'm going to be talking you through basically the best place to start and how to start making changes if you do want to start living a more plant-based lifestyle. I'm going to be talking about the particular nutrients that you need to look out for, so things that aren't so readily available in a plant-based diet, which you can get from a plant-based diet, but you just need to think about. I'm going to talk about how to structure your diet to make sure that you're not only just getting all the nutrients that you need, but actually eating in a way that's going to make you feel energized and healthy and provide the energy that you need, particularly sort of after you train, etc. And I'm also going to be looking a little bit at ways to make it kind of fun and achievable and sustainable, because after all, no one decides to go vegan or adopt a plant-based diet just because they want to see how it is in the short term. I think, you know, pretty much everyone, when they commit to this, wants to go about this long term. So we need to make sure that we can kind of stand the test of time. So for those of you who don't know me, and I think there are a few people who I haven't met who've just joined, which is wonderful. My name is Rosie Letts. I'm a nutritional therapist and functional medicine practitioner, and I have basically dedicated my career to helping people to look and feel their best through changing the way that they eat. I specialise in fertility, in digestive disorders, and in weight management. But obviously nutrition is a huge field, and there are so many different kind of areas that are constantly evolving and growing. So I've constantly got my head in the research. And yeah, I think we'll just get started. What I was going to say is, because there's an awful lot I'm going to cover, if you want to grab a pen and paper, that would probably make a lot of sense. If not, then, you know, this video will be sent to you afterwards, so you can always re-watch. But it makes sense to take some kind of notes. And any questions, I'm just going to have to take this out, it's so annoying. Let me know if you stop being able to hear me. Any questions, please post them as they kind of come up or wait until the end, but I'm going to allow plenty of time for chat at the end. Once I get on the roll, I tend to talk, and I've got loads that I want to cover. But feel free to kind of flag up if you don't know what I'm saying, or if you want to ask any questions. That's great. Okay, so let's dive in. So the British Dietetics Association and the American Dietetics Association both agree that vegan diets, completely vegan diets, are suitable for every life stage, which is brilliant. So if you have children, or if you are thinking you might become pregnant, or if you're an athlete, or whatever it is, the British Dietetics Association believe that vegan diets are suitable for you at any stage of life. Research has linked vegan diets with low blood pressure, low cholesterol, lower rates of heart disease, and lower rates of certain cancers. So it sounds pretty good, doesn't it? You know, if we do these diets well, the benefits are incredible. But there is a but. Poorly planned vegan diets, and particularly those relying on lots and lots of carbohydrates and sort of processed kind of fake meats, can really quite quickly lead to nutrition deficiencies and can make you feel quite ill quite quickly. So I want to start by basically looking at the best way to start making changes towards a more plant-based way of eating. And I'd say absolutely, if you've got friends and families who are trying to do this, or if you yourself are, you know, kind of haven't quite decided and are thinking of becoming more plant-based, take things slowly would be my number one tip. Don't try and jump in and do everything all at once. One of the biggest mistakes that my clients make, and particularly when I'm talking to clients about, you know, their health journey so far and different kind of health regimes and ways of eating that they've tried, is that people try to do far too much at once. They try to do everything, and they become really, really overwhelmed. And when you're overwhelmed, it's very easy to kind of give up and not do anything at all. So take things slowly, and there are many different ways that you can do that. So the first thing, the first kind of way you could do this is you could just simply focus on changing one ingredient at a time. So you might think, well, I have milk in my tea, I have milk in my cereal, so I'm going to change that for plant-based milk. Or you might try and replace all dairies. You might be looking at, you know, coconut oil to replace butter, looking at vegan cheeses, or making different meals that don't actually contain those dairy elements. So there's pretty much, I would say now, a vegan alternative to pretty much every food. So it's actually a really, really good time to try and do this. You shouldn't miss any one thing too much. The other way that you could do it is you could just start with having one vegan day a week and then increasing that. So, you know, meat-free Monday is the kind of classic example. So you're not diving in and doing everything at once. Or you could kind of be a bit more flexible with it and say, well, you know, I'm going to be plant-based completely at home, but when I'm out and about, I'm not going to worry too much about that, etc. The other way, and I really like this approach actually, is just changing one meal at a time. And the reason I like this is that because it really gets you to sort of think about exactly what you're doing for each of your meals, and it helps you kind of structure your way of eating. So you might think, well, for the first month or first couple of weeks, I'm really just going to focus on breakfasts. And then you might, you know, figure out 3 or 4 or 5 breakfasts that really, really suit you well, vegan breakfast that you know you enjoy, you know they make you feel good. And then once you've really, really mastered those, you can start moving on to vegan lunches or, you know, vegan dinners, vice versa. So you're gradually doing it. But absolutely, do things relatively slowly would be my advice. Now, I understand probably a lot of you are probably already fully fledged vegans, which is amazing. So I wanted to show you the vegan plate, and I've posted it just below this video, so I hope you can see that. And Karen's also said that she'll post it in the comments for me, but I'm not quite sure whether she's going to have success with that. Karen's my assistant. I'm not just bossing her around. She likes helping me. Anyway, whether you can or can't see it, the vegan plate was created by the Vegan Society, and I think it's a really amazing visual aid to help you ensure that you're getting you're getting roughly the proportions of everything that you need at each meal. And I will send the plate via email for all of you after the webinar. So as you may or may not be able to see, around half the plate is fruit and vegetables and herbs. Now, I pretty much always recommend to pretty much all of my clients that half of their plate is fruit and vegetables. Lots and lots of reasons for this. Slight diversion, around 27%, only around 27% of the UK, according to sort of recent research, actually get their 5 a day. Now, the 5 a day wasn't put out by the government because it's the sort of optimum number of fruit and vegetables that we should be eating. The optimum is more like 9 or 10. 5 was what the kind of public health authorities thought that most of us could probably manage, and only around 27% of people are actually managing to achieve that. So it just shows how chronically low fruit and vegetable consumption is. Now, fruit and vegetables contain lots and lots of fibre, lots and lots of fluids, so absolutely vital for your digestive health. That's not even really what I'm interested in. It's the phytochemicals within the plants that I'm really, really passionate about, because these phytochemicals are our body's kind of key defense towards oxidation, and oxidation is what leads to pretty much all disease. So oxidation causes aging, it causes DNA damage to the cells, and the different plant chemicals help fight different cellular processes. So it's really important to get a lot of fruit and vegetables, but also a really wide variety of fruit and vegetables. And it's the pigments within plants help us to understand which healing phytochemicals they contain. And so the best way to make sure that you're getting everything you need is to eat a really wide variety of fruit and vegetables every single day. So eat the rainbow is a bit of a mantra for me, but you really, really should be trying to make sure that your whole plate is absolutely packed full of colour. Haggis, I'm sorry that you can't see it. It should be on a post below this video, and unfortunately I can't see it because I'm live at the moment. We've had so many technical difficulties getting this live, so I do apologise, but I'll post a picture afterwards. So basically the plate's showing that half your plate should be brightly coloured fruit and vegetables, and then a quarter roughly should be legumes for vegans. Now, this is really important because legumes are a primary source of protein, and a lot of vegans aren't getting anything like enough protein. A lot of people aren't getting anything like enough protein, but it's particularly difficult with a vegan diet. So around a quarter of your plate, around a quarter of your daily intake of food should be kind of legumes, beans, lentils, etc. And a lot of people are really going to struggle with that. Every single day you should be having nuts and seeds, and I'll talk about this a little bit later on, but that's really important because of the fatty acid balance that nuts and seeds allow you to achieve. And it's particularly important to have certain seeds that contain omega-3 fats. So this is things like chia and flax and hemp, and really we should be eating omega-3 containing seeds every single day. I don't think a lot of people do that. And then there is less than a quarter of the plate of starchy carbohydrates. And I think a lot of people probably eat more like 3/4 starchy carbohydrates. So starchy carbs are important actually, whole grains, and particularly for vegan diets, you do need to eat more than omnivores do, because you're not going to get certain B vitamins and other vitamins and minerals from other plant foods. So whole grains do form a particularly important part of a vegan diet, but really it shouldn't be more than a quarter of your plate. And I think a lot of people do an awful lot more than that. So vegan diets can be low in certain nutrients, as I mentioned earlier. So I just want to highlight the more important nutrients that we really need to watch out for. And then we'll kind of move on to how to structure your day's food. So protein. As a general rule, you should be aiming for around 1 gram of protein per day per kilo of body weight. And if you do a lot of exercise, if you're pregnant, you'll need more than that. But as a general rule, for someone who's relatively active, it's around 1 gram of protein per day per kilo of body weight. So I weigh just under 70 kilos. So that means I need to eat around 70 grams of protein a day. And I like to space that throughout the day to make sure that I'm getting enough amino acids with every one of my meals. Now, that might not mean a huge amount to you, but to put things into perspective, I've worked with, and it is particularly vegans recently, who aren't getting 20% of that because they're focusing far too much on the carbohydrate. And it's, meat and eggs and dairy that we typically think of as good protein sources. So you strip them out and you end up with a very, very carbohydrate-rich diet, which is devoid in amino acids. So if you're concerned about whether or not you're getting enough protein, what I would say is it's not a bad idea to just track what you're eating for a couple of days. Not more than that, but if you use an app like MyFitnessPal, there are loads of them, and just put everything that you're eating in that over a couple of days, it will give you a good indication of roughly how many grams of protein you're eating. And if you're supposed to be eating 70-ish and you're eating 30-ish and you've been doing that for a long time, then we know that we really, really need to work on that. So good protein sources for vegans are my favorite. There are loads, but these are my favorites. Tempeh. Tempeh is made from soybeans, which have been fermented into a kind of a cake. I prefer it to tofu because it's more of a whole food. So yeah, it's a less processed version. And I also like it because it's fermented, so it contains some probiotics, which is a wonderful addition for your gut bacteria. It's really going to support your microbiome. But also because the soy is fermented, your digestive system basically gets a head start. So it's much, much easier for you to access those amino acids because they've been through that fermentation process. It's also, because of the fermentation process, an amazing source of B vitamins and soy isoflavones, which can be really beneficial, particularly for women of a certain age. So yeah, tempeh is excellent. It's not something you probably eat every day, but if you like it, it can become a regular part of your diet. Chia, I mentioned chia earlier, and Louise loves chia seeds, excellent. Chia are a bit of a staple for me. They are a wonderful seed that become kind of gelatinous in water, so they form a kind of jelly. They're an excellent source of protein, but they're also an excellent source of omega-3. They're one of the only good sources of omega-3 that we can get in vegan diets. So I like to add additional chia seeds to smoothies, porridge, overnight oats. They're a real good kind of breakfast addition. And you can also use them in baking. Sometimes you can even use them to kind of replace eggs because they kind of do the same thing. They're binding. So yeah. What did I have for chia seeds? 8% of your recommended daily intake in 30 grams. So that was 8% of my recommended daily intake in 30 grams. You probably wouldn't eat 30 grams of chia seeds in one sitting, but a couple of tablespoons would be a really nice addition. Quinoa. I always talk about quinoa. I love it. So quinoa, oh hi Claire, is a grain. It acts like a grain, but it's actually a seed. So again, very high in protein, and it basically can be used like rice. Lots of people complain that they don't know how to cook quinoa. I think it's just because you're not used to cooking quinoa. What I love about it is, because I'm a very lazy cook, is it lasts a really long time. So you can make a nice quinoa salad or something, and that will last in the fridge for a good 5 days. So you can then use that as to form part of your lunches, and it just really, really cuts down on cooking time. But quinoa, we've got 100 grams of cooked quinoa is around 9% of your intake, your daily intake of protein. So that's really easy to achieve with your lunch or whatever. Chickpeas, 1 cup of chickpeas provides 23% of your recommended intake. I like to combine chickpeas with my quinoa salads to really pack that in. Chickpeas are also a really incredible source of iron and zinc and folate, and those are all things that don't come too readily in a lot of plant-based diets. So they're a great addition. And lentils. Lentils are so overlooked, I think. They are one of the most versatile foods that we could be adding. Gut bacteria love lentils. They provide certain kind of complex fibers that are really, really amazing for your beneficial bacteria strains. And again, they're just so easy. You can chuck them in soups, or you can add them to sauces. I just use them as a thickener, so if I'm making a sauce or a anything that can be pureed, basically, I'll chuck in some lentils, and the kids don't notice because I don't put in so many that it completely changes the taste. So lentils, again, absolutely wonderful. One cup of cooked lentils is around 36% of your recommended intake of protein, and again, that's based on me. Quinoa freezes well too. Cooked quinoa, does it? I didn't know that. That's excellent. Thanks, Louise. Okay, so other than protein, and I'm going to talk a little bit more later about why I'm so obsessed with protein, there are other nutrients that we need to keep an eye on. So iron, omega-3, calcium, selenium, vitamin D, and zinc will be my key ones. Now, there's quite a lot of controversy, I think, about whether vegan diets can or cannot provide these nutrients. So I want to sort of myth bust that a little bit so you actually know where you stand. So with calcium, we're always taught that dairy is the most amazing source of calcium. We absolutely need it as part of our diet. It's not true. You can get plenty of calcium from plant-based sources, so you absolutely do not need to be having dairy, and you don't need to be having fortified milk products either, although it is an easy way to get your calcium. So around 400 milliliters of fortified plant milk, and pretty much all the plant milks are going to be fortified with vitamin D and calcium, is 2/3 of an adult's recommended daily intake. Or 100 grams of tofu is around half an adult's daily intake. You're also going to get plenty from any leafy greens, particularly sort of kale and pak choi, etc. Dried figs, nuts, seeds. So you don't need to worry about calcium. You do need to make sure you're getting enough, but it shouldn't be a kind of concern for you. Iron. So a healthy, varied vegan diet should provide enough iron, particularly good sources of iron are going to be things like beans, lentils and peas, certain nuts and seeds, tofu, dried fruit. Surprisingly, I only learned that when I was pregnant with Maya, my eldest, and my iron was dropping really low, and I was vegetarian at the time, and I found out that dried fruit is surprisingly high in iron. Whole grains, particularly kind of whole grain bread, can be a good source. The problem with iron is that some people, only a fairly small percentage of people, but some people can't actually absorb the non-heme iron, it's called, and that's the plant form of iron, very effectively at all. So for some of us, and I'm one of these people, I have a genetic abnormality that makes it very, very difficult for me to absorb non-heme iron. I just can't get the iron I need from plants, try as I might. So it'd be really easy to get it from a piece of meat, but actually if I want to follow a completely plant-based diet, I do need to supplement iron. So on that, I would say if you are recently vegan, or if you're thinking about turning vegan, or particularly if you have children and you're going to be doing this together as a family, check your bloods. It's really easy to order from Medichecks or Thriga or something like that, simple blood profiles, so that you can make sure that things like iron and B12 and vitamin D are staying at a healthy level. And if you notice them dropping, then obviously you know that you either need to supplement or introduce different foods, or look at that carefully, because particularly with children, they're not necessarily going to be able to tell you that they're not feeling quite right. As an adult, I wasn't even really quite aware that I wasn't feeling quite right until it was a little bit too late, and I was kind of, my blood pressure was low and I was feeling really, really anxious, etc. So keep an eye on those things. Omega-3. So omega-3 is another tricky one. So there are two types of omega-3. You've got ALA, which is found in certain plants, so things like chia seeds, flax seeds, rapeseed, walnuts, etc. And DHA and EPA, which are kind of one of the same, which come from fish. Now, your body can convert ALA to DHA, but it's not a particularly efficient process, and in some people it's a really highly inefficient process. So omega-3 is one of these things that technically you can get the omega-3 that you need from a vegan diet, but for some people it doesn't quite work out like that. So I would say, it's not really like iron that you can just regularly test. You kind of have to keep an eye on it and sort of go by how you're feeling. But I would say introduce lots and lots of plant-based sources of omega-3. I'll put together a little list for you. And I would say supplements. So there are algae supplements that will provide a really nice high dose of omega-3, and therefore if you're struggling with the conversion process, at least you're going to be getting some. If you do test and you notice that your omega-3 stores are really, really low, basically all you're going to be able to do is split up that dose of the algae supplements. So split it up over kind of several times a day. Your omega-3 stores should last you for kind of 3 months or so. So they won't drop immediately. But if you get a few months in and start feeling like you're getting kind of brain fog and you're just not feeling right, it's probably because your omega-3 stores are low. So it's one of the things to check. And some people who I work with are predominantly plant-based, but they're actually quite happy to take a fish oil supplement, and that might work out for you. I don't know. Okay, other nutrients. Selenium is difficult to get what we need, not because there isn't enough selenium in plants, but because our soils are very, very depleted. So basically it's a problem of mass farming. We should be able to get the selenium we need from a vegan diet, but our soils have been farmed so intensively that selenium stores are quite low. So they build up in animal tissues, and therefore it's quite easy to get what you need, but it's difficult in plants. So Brazil nuts are your best source, and if you have 3 or 4 Brazil nuts a day, you should be fine. If you were to take a good multi, that would cover your base for selenium. And again, with zinc is very important for cellular reproduction, and is involved in lots and lots of different body processes. And our zinc stores drop slowly, but when they drop, it can cause big problems. And your best sources of zinc are things like beef and lamb, plant sources, certain breads, certain cereals, but you're going to have to eat a lot of them, and then that's going to lead to you not eating enough of certain other things. So I think, my advice would be take a good multivitamin to cover your bases, and then kind of look at the checklist for different foods and make sure you're getting at least some of these key minerals. Okay, some things your diet will not cover. There aren't many. B12, you can't get B12, sufficient B12 from a vegan diet unless you're eating foods that are fortified with B12. So plant milks, nutritional yeast would be good examples of those. If they're not regular staples for you, if you're not having them every day, I would definitely supplement. You can get a B12 kind of spray, which is really easy to absorb. Better You I use from any kind of health food shop, and that will cover your base. And then vitamin D. Now, this isn't exclusively for vegans. No one can get the vitamin D that they need from their diet. So we should all be supplementing. Vitamin D should come from the sun. We don't have enough in this country, unless you're somewhere hot. So over the winter months, definitely supplement. And to be honest, it's probably worth supplementing all year unless you're getting a nice deep suntan. Okay, so hopefully that's sort of taken the mystery out of what you should and shouldn't be eating and supplementing. But I wanted, before we get into the questions, to talk a little bit more, give you some sort of top tips, if you like, on making your diet optimal and eating in a way that's really going to help you to thrive rather than just covering all of your bases. And these are tips that really are relevant for omnivores as well as plant-based eaters or vegan eaters. But I think it's really important for everyone to kind of take stock of where they are and think about how they can shape things up. So the first thing my top tip for optimum health for everyone is eat a good breakfast. Every single day, eat a good breakfast. And so a lot of people don't. A lot of people, it's easy to kind of neglect breakfast a bit, isn't it? When you're busy, got other things to do, kids, school, and all that kind of thing. And it's equally very easy to just sort of grab some toast or something in the morning, just having something really quick. Breakfast means breaking the fast. You have not eaten for probably 12 hours or so, and it's a really, really important opportunity for you to set your blood sugar levels, particularly for the day ahead. If you don't eat breakfast, you are much, much more vulnerable throughout the day to low moods, to feeling anxious. You're less resilient to the challenges that you are thrown at you, because you are just on a physical level, you're unstable. It's also a really important opportunity to eat a healthful meal. So if you're just thinking, oh, breakfast, I'll just grab some toast or, croissant, whatever it is, you've just missed a big opportunity to get all of that stuff on the vegan plate into your diet. So then you're going to have to play catch up for the next 2 meals, and it ends up being kind of unmanageable. So a really good breakfast should contain some protein, lots of fruit and vegetables, ideally, and hopefully some kind of healthy fat as well. It doesn't need to be big, we're talking a few hundred calories, but it's really, really important to find some breakfasts that are going to be quick and easy enough that you can be eating every single day to set your blood sugar correctly and break the fast. And if you do that, will notice, I promise you, that you are making better food choices come mid-morning, come lunchtime, and that you're feeling better, you're feeling more energized throughout the day. So perfect vegan breakfasts, I just threw together some ideas here, there's so many others. Overnight oats, you can't beat overnight oats, they're so quick and easy. Soak some oats, some plant-based milk, add some chia, add some other seeds or some nut butter, some berries, frozen berries work fine. You can make like 3 of these at once and they last really well in the fridge. So, your meal prep time of 2 minutes has probably done you 3 days breakfasts. Absolute winner. Granola, you can make a granola if you want to, that would be great, or you can buy a granola with some kind of plant-based yogurt. So coconut or almond or soya are all really good choices. The reason for yogurt is that the protein content in the yogurt is so much higher than in any milk, and if it's properly fermented, then you're getting good healthy bacteria as well, which is going to help your digestive system. So some kind of granola yogurt combination is excellent. Smoothies. There was a big thing last year, wasn't there, about no one eating smoothies because someone on the BBC had said they're bad. It's nonsense. As long as your smoothies contain protein, and I would just, in this instance, you can do it with kind of nuts and seeds, or I had one client doing soft tofu, which sounds amazing. Actually, I hadn't thought about it, but I just use a protein powder. There's some really, really good protein powders available. A scoop of protein powder, some kind of fruit, maybe a bit of kale or something, plant-based milk, blitz it up. That is amazing, perfectly balanced breakfast for you, and it's taken you less than a minute, and you can drink it in the car or on the school run, or I'd rather you sat at the table, but if you haven't got time, you haven't got time. So smoothies, brilliant. You can do those every day. Something on, if you like toast, great, have something on it. So have avocado, or have nut butter, or have hummus, or have something that you enjoy on the toast. That thing has to contain some protein, and ideally should contain some healthy fat. So it's so simple, just add to it so that it's not all carbohydrate, because if it's all carbohydrate, your blood sugar is just going to spike and then drop. So that leads me on to my second point. My second top tip is to keep your blood sugar levels stable as possible throughout the day. Your body can only cope with around a teaspoon and a half of sugar in the bloodstream at any one time. If you go over that point, it becomes quite dangerous, and your body has to quickly release insulin to draw the sugar out of the bloodstream. When you release insulin, two things happen. So firstly, you store fat. Insulin is the fat storage hormone. So if you're trying to lose weight, eating regularly and keeping your blood sugar stable is the first important step for you to do that. The other thing that happens is your body panics and releases cortisol, a stress hormone, to alert you to the fact that you haven't eaten, your blood sugar is low, and potentially this is an emergency situation. And cortisol leads to you feeling kind of anxious and tense. And on a small level, I think we can probably all relate to that throughout the day. It gets to mid-morning, you haven't eaten, you start feeling like, oh, your emails are driving you mad, and that's what's happening on a chemical level. Okay. So in order to avoid that rapid spike and then drop in blood sugar, we need to ensure that the sugar that we're eating, which is naturally in every food that we eat, is going to be released as slowly into the bloodstream as possible. And we do that by combining it. So if I were to eat a cookie, there's more than 2 teaspoons of sugar in that, so it's going to spike my blood sugar, and then that whole process is going to happen. If I were to eat a cookie with a handful of nuts, the sugar in the cookie, although it's the same amount of sugar, will be released more slowly into my bloodstream because of the way that the protein slows down the digestion process. And so the spike is much more, it's not a spike, it's more gradual and it's more sustained. So my body doesn't have to do that insulin cortisol process. So I've eaten the same cookie, but just by combining it properly, you're really changing the physiological effect. So basically, in order to keep your blood sugar levels as balanced as possible, I'd like you to try and do 3 things. Eat little and often, particularly if you are just getting kind of started out with shaking things, moving things around and trying to figure all of this out. It's likely that your blood sugar levels are out of balance, particularly if you eat too many carbohydrates. So try, rather than just going for 3 meals a day, eat 3 meals with a couple of good snacks in between. So you're eating every 2 to 3 hours, and make sure that every meal and every snack contains some protein. That's the second thing. Obsessed with protein, to slow the release of sugar. The other thing that I would really encourage you to do is eat more fiber. Fiber is fueling the beneficial bacteria, and again, the bacteria in our gut will have a dramatic effect on our ability to control our blood sugar levels. I am going to come to all of your questions. The third thing is keep hydrated. This applies to everyone. It's so important. We hear all the messages, but so many of us are still not very well hydrated. Our body is 70% water. Our brains function best when they're 80% water. It's really important to drink fluids throughout the day, so at least 2 litres, and herbal teas and things count towards that total. Coffee, anything caffeinated, anything artificial sweeteners does not add to that. I had a story about hydration for you, but I'm going to skip it because we're running a little bit late. Okay, and the final thing is that I wanted to explain to you was about eating protein with each meal, and why I'm so into protein for vegan diets particularly. The reason I'm stressing protein so much is because it is worrying how little protein a lot of plant-based diets contain. Next to water, protein makes up most of the weight of our bodies. So our muscles, organs, hair, nails, ligaments, all built from amino acids from proteins. So particularly anyone growing, so children, or pregnant women, etc., or anyone who's doing anything with gym, or who's exercising regularly, etc. Your protein, you can see why protein is so important. It's literally what we're made of. But also, whilst our brains are made of kind of sort of spidery like neurons that are fat-based, they send messages between each other, these neurons, with neurochemicals, neurotransmitters, and these chemical messengers are comprised of amino acids. In fact, pretty much every enzyme, every neurotransmitter, every kind of how to explain it. Every kind of connector in the body is requires the right balance of amino acids in order to function properly. So our bacteria in our gut are responsible for producing most of the neurotransmitters, and they are produced from amino acids. So if we don't have enough, it's going to massively affect the way that our bodies can produce hormones, brain chemicals, etc. And this is why protein deficiency is linked with depression, with anxiety, with sex hormone imbalance, with problems in the menopause. So important. I also wanted to explain that you probably noticed actually after a high carbohydrate lunch, you might feel kind of sleepy and yeah, like you can't really concentrate, can't really focus, sort of demotivated, etc. And that's because the carbohydrates increase brain levels of a particular amino acid called tryptophan, which spurs the brain into making other neurochemicals, into making serotonin and melatonin. So these are kind of happy, sleepy hormones. So after a big, I don't know if you've noticed, in the office, if you have a pasta or sandwiches or something like that for lunch, your motivation to work might be pretty low. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's not a good thing. Eating protein, particularly in the middle of the day, raises the levels of a different amino acid called tyrosine, which promotes the production of particular brain chemicals. And these trigger the production of serotonin and norepinephrine and dopamine. And those brain chemicals make us feel more alert, more focused. So I just think it's really interesting that just by changing the kind of composition of our meals at particular times of the day, we can have a direct effect on how we feel and how our brains are functioning. So more protein, more vegetables, fewer starchy carbohydrates is the kind of take home there. Okay, I'm going to answer a few questions because I know that some of you have been waiting. So, do I have any information on specific fruits and vegetables to target various forms of oxidation? Yes, I do. I've got a really cool resource that I'll post here in a minute, actually, which explains, it's a functional medicine resource. It kind of explains how the different pigments in different fruit and vegetables can show you, which processes they're targeting. Which is really, really interesting. But basically what I try to do is eat really wide variety of colour, as fresh as possible, and as many sort of species as possible. So we, as hunter-gatherers, we'd have eaten as much as sort of 800 different varieties of plants. And now, in the supermarket, you've got a handful, you can probably count on both of your hands how many different vegetables you've eaten this week. I don't know if you can specifically, but a lot of people will be able to do that. So we will really kind of bred the range of vegetables and herbs and things that we eat into really narrow ranges. And so even just by looking at, purple sprouting broccoli, like different types of squashes, like different varieties of vegetables, we're opening the doors to more and more phytochemicals. And if you can, I posted a thing recently actually about a harvest share that I'm a little bit involved with, in Sims Hill in Frenchay. There are loads of these. If you can find a way to get affordable, good quality local vegetables, you're well on your way to achieving that. Loving cheer. Rosie, how much vitamin D should we supplement a day? My GP wants to take me to take a supplement. So if your GP wants you to take a supplement, Louise, you're probably chronically low. I don't know if they've done a blood test for that. It depends on how low your levels are. You can safely supplement, I like to say, around 3,000 IU daily. But the supplements that you get from your GP aren't great for multiple reasons. There's a really good supplement by Nutri Advanced, which is vitamin D with K, and vitamin K is another thing plant-based diets aren't very good at providing. And I can't recall how many IUs it is, but it's a dropper. I'll post a link for you, Louise. But yeah, roughly between kind of 2,000 and 3,000 IU a day over the winter, I would say. And if your levels are chronically low, you're probably going to have to do even more than that. I'm getting really tired of eggs. Are there any other protein breakfasts? You send them smoothie, but tend to have that later in the day. Yeah, there are loads of other good protein breakfasts. So again, so if you like the kind of breakfast that eggs are involved in, but you're not keen on eggs, you could switch to, you know, scrambled tofu, or you know, other kind of plants based forms of that will help you with the, you know, kind of cooked breakfasts. Pancakes can be a really nice option. We've got some nice egg-free pancake ideas. Anything oat-based doesn't have to be porridge, but we use lots of different kind of overnight oats or birches that work quite well. Nut butters on toast. There must be other smoothies that you're into. Yeah, have a look at my website, and also have a look at, I can post some ideas for other kind of really good vegan recipe developers and things. There are tons, don't be put off. I agree, eggs are an amazing source of protein. That's why it's frustrating. They are the best source of protein, but you can totally replace them with plant-based sources. It's a case of rethinking the way that you do your breakfast. Which protein powder brands do I recommend? So there are a couple that are really, really good. The first is Raw Sport, or they are also called Revolution Foods, which I find a little bit confusing. That I think they are the best protein powders on the market, as far as I'm concerned, from a kind of nutritional makeup. So they have very cleverly combined different types of plant-based protein, 3 or 4 different types, and then they've added in electrolytes and grey salts and enzymes to help break the proteins down. So really, really good quality. I can post a link for you. Lots of different flavors, etc. And what I like about them is you can buy one-shot samples, so that you can actually make sure that you like the flavors, etc., before you buy a big one. I also really like rejuvenated proteins. I think they're probably not quite up there with the, you know, on the quality of protein possibly, but they're really easy. They taste lovely. You can just stir them into water. So if I'm really busy between clients, etc., and I haven't got time to have my snack, that's really handy. I literally just mix it up with water. So those are the 2 that I would recommend. But yeah, remind me, I'll post you a link. Thank you, CJ. Got your first order from Sims Hill. Awesome, Louise. So good. I love it. How much protein would you recommend per day? 65 grams kilo female. So it depends how much exercise you're doing, but as a rough estimate, 65 grams. So, and I would split that over your kind of 3 meals. So you're going to be looking at 20 plus grams of protein per meal, which is achievable, but it is something you have to kind of look into. Is buckwheat good for protein? Okay, it's not an amazing source of protein, but you could you can boost your protein. So buckwheat would be good to add in with other grains, I would say. So add it in with rice or quinoa, etc. And again, with the grains, it's really good to get lots of variety as well. Cool, keep questions coming, but I'm just going to talk to you about something I've got that might be of interest to you. So I recently put together, because my clients demanded it basically, a ultimate guide to plant-based eating, and a 4-week meal plan. So I'm really aware that I've just given you loads of information and said you've got to do this and this and this and this and this, and it should be fun and make sure you get this variety. And I know that that's really hard to do on a practical basis, particularly if you're actually cooking for a family and you've actually got a job and you don't want to be spending loads of time in the kitchen like I don't. So I have basically all of those areas that I've talked to you about, so the supplementation, the nutrients that you really need to be looking out for, I have written in a really easy to read format so that you can just kind of glance and make sure you're getting what you need. And then I have put together probably 100 or more different recipes into a 4-week fully structured meal plan, complete with shopping lists, so that you can literally just go and get started tomorrow if you like. So the way that I put meal plans together, and I've got a video on meal planning that I can share with you as well that's going to be helpful, a colleague of mine put together. But I don't like spending ages cooking. I love cooking, but I don't like to have to do it every single day. So I will make sure that if I'm cooking a meal, it's going to do me at least 2 or 3 meals. So I might eat I might make a nut roast, and then that'll make a lovely Sunday lunch. And Hello, I'm so sorry everyone. I knew that was going to happen at some point, to be honest. I'm kind of chuffed that I got roughly towards the end of the video. Um, the internet here is appalling. I have been Bluetoothing or whatever it is my phone, and my phone gave up. So thank you so much for joining. I've had a blast talking to you. I'm going to try now to answer some of your questions, if I can find the stream, just to make sure. No, that's what at the moment. I think what I might have to do is just reply to your comments and to try and make sure that I've answered everyone's questions. But what I want to say is, let's keep the conversation going. If you are trying to make changes, I'd love for you to be asking questions and helping each other and sharing things with each other in this community. It's what it's here for. So keep the questions coming, share your creations, take a look at the website, my website. I'll be posting really nice plant-based ideas over the coming weeks. I'm going to send you some information as well on my guide to plant-based living and vegan meal plan, because I really think that it can help some of you, and particularly with just saving a hell of a lot of time and also a lot of money. It's really easy to start spending excessively and buying ingredients you don't really know what to do with, and buying things that go off, etc. And when I write these meal plans, I make sure that they are minimal waste, as waste-free as possible, and that you kind of use and reuse to make sure that you're not spending loads of time in the kitchen, even though you are discovering new foods. So if I'll send you information, I'm going to go back on and type out my responses to your comments. Thank you for putting up with my appalling technical issues over the last hour. And next time I do a webinar, I'll do it from the safety of my office so that this doesn't happen. And if anyone's in Cheltenham, please come and see me at the Wellbeing Festival. It's going to be amazing. All right, thanks ever so much. Have a wonderful evening, everyone, and I'll speak to you soon.